Yes, unfortunately, beautiful El Salvador is just a Bitcoin project that completely failed. In this video, I describe my experiences, the pros and cons, and, of course, dating. Before we get into it, let me briefly explain that this is not an AI-generated text. It was written entirely by me. I use a borrowed voice because I have an accent and I want everyone to understand me. I don't mind if you hit the like button or leave a comment. But I would really appreciate it if you shared this video with your friends. So sit back, grab a coffee, and enjoy my videos from San Salvador while I talk. Most people get the names wrong. El Salvador is the name of the country, and San Salvador is the capital. Let's start with the recent history of El Salvador. I won't go into the numbers, you can find them all on the internet. I'll just describe a few important facts. Before 2019, El Salvador was probably the most criminal country in the world. In 2019, after the election of a new president, the handsome Nayib Bukele, crime rates have been decreasing every year. Until now, when the country has become one of the safest countries in the world. Some people even call Bukele a dictator. But he is a good and socially oriented dictator. I can see some parallels with Belarus, where President Alexander Lukashenko, also called a dictator, has been in power for over 30 years. And he is doing an excellent job. Belarus is sterilely clean, the roads are like a mirror, the country is super organized with zero crime, zero corruption, no illegal immigration, no homeless people, free education, free medicine for everyone, high quality and natural food and everything at affordable prices even for lower class. Bukele have a long way to get to this point, but with the price politic, El Salvador is going wrong direction. When I spoke to several people in San Salvador, they were genuinely happy that crime had disappeared and they could walk safely on the streets. But they were certainly not happy with the prices, how they were rising much faster than their salaries and their quality of life had drastically decreased. The prices are for foreigners and the wealthy locals, not for the local middle and lower class. And since it is a heavily militarized country, with police and the army everywhere, people are not allowed to organize any protests against the government and against the higher prices. In September 2021, El Salvador became the first country in the world to adopt cryptocurrency as legal tender alongside the US dollar. Every adult resident of El Salvador could open a crypto wallet where they received $30 in Bitcoin from the government. And then came the reality check. According to many sources, over 90% of people immediately withdrew $30 and never used a Bitcoin wallet again. I don't know if 90% is even a small number. I talked to over 70 people there and I didn't meet a single one who ever used Bitcoin after withdrawing $30. The Bitcoin project should make El Salvador a magnet for crypto enthusiasts to visit or even move there. Today, we can say that this crypto project has completely failed. Not only for Salvadorans, but also for foreigners. In other words, the Bitcoin era is over. People no longer believe in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin will only continue to decline. Everyone in the world knows Bitcoin. Those who believe in Bitcoin have already invested. And the rest will never invest. And as we know, Bitcoin can only grow if new people invest. However, if new people don't come and old people withdraw their money from time to time, Bitcoin will slowly decline. El Salvador is perfect proof of this. This beautiful country has become not only a test project for Bitcoin, but also an economic colony of North America. Just as Western Europe economically colonized Eastern European countries and import their second-rate and outdated goods, North America has economically colonized entire Latin American and Caribbean countries to import their outdated and unnecessary goods. You can see many American fast food chains, overpriced half-empty shopping malls with American brands, and you can hear American music everywhere. It doesn't really feel like Latin America anymore. That's really disturbing for any visitor. When I travel halfway around the world to Latin America, I don't want to feel like I'm in the 51st state of the United States. I want to feel like I'm in Latin America. So, let's talk about the pros and cons. I'll start with the positives, which is what I'm going to end this video with. There are 4 positive and extraordinary things about El Salvador. 1. Very low crime rate. 2. The nicest people I've ever met. 3. The National Library of El Salvador. 4. Western system of society management. Now let's talk about the negative aspects that influencers don't talk about. 1. There really is nothing to do there and you get bored to death. Well, there is something there, but it's definitely not worth paying an expensive flight and overpriced accommodation to see something you can find in any other part of Latin America for a much better price. 2. It's super expensive. Still not as expensive as Uruguay, Argentina, or Chile, but definitely very close. You can easily check online what the prices are at McDonald's or Starbucks. And accommodation is even more expensive than in the West because it's targeted to tourists. And restaurants? I've already described this problem in a previous video about Peru. Restaurant owners pay their employees minimum wages, have to pay less rent, less taxes, and less raw material costs, but expect customers to pay the same price as in the West. Not to mention that the quality of the food is much lower than in the West, and hygiene standards are very questionable. In El Salvador is the situation very similar, if not worse. 3. Lots of fat people. This problem is a consequence of the previous point. It is obvious that if quality food and a healthy lifestyle are expensive for the middle and lower classes, they can only afford junk food from Western fast food chains or cheap pizza at Little Caesars. No wonder they have become very fat. I feel very sorry for the Salvadorans, because they are very nice and pleasant people and this situation is not their fault. The country is simply completely colonized by North American companies and they don't care about the Salvadorans at all. These corporations only see the numbers and how easily they can make huge profits. 4. Terrible dating conditions. If you are a single guy looking for a girlfriend or wife, you are here completely wrong. I was there for a few weeks, and I didn't see a single hot girl. Not only are all the girls very short and overweight, but they are also in bad shape. They are still nice, like all Salvadorans by default. But if you compare them to girls from Brazil, Colombia, Paraguay, or Venezuela, you are talking about two different galaxies. And again, this is the result of bad pricing policies for the middle and lower classes. These girls cannot afford healthy food and gym memberships. And if there are any hot girls, they must be taken by Americans or rich local dudes. But the worst part is that dating culture is literally dead. Even though it's very safe, girls still have a dangerous past in their heads, so they hardly go on a date with a stranger. The only way to meet someone is through a real social circle, which is very time-consuming and the quality of the girl is very questionable. I am very sorry to say these things, because none of these negatives are the fault of the Salvadorans. Is it the fault of the government, or of foreign companies? I don't know. This answer requires more information and deeper analysis. All I can say is that the result is very, very bad. Now I will mention few very positive things about El Salvador. 1. Very low crime rate. You can see the police on almost every corner, even in some very quiet places. Salvadorans remember bad and criminal times, and therefore have a negative aversion to any violence and really value peace. 2. The nicest people I have ever met. This really shocked me positively. Everyone said that Filipinos, Thais, or Indonesians are the nicest people in the world and that they are always smiling. Yes, that is true. I have spent some time in all these countries, but I can tell you that Salvadorans are even a level above. Whenever I had contact with the locals, they looked me deeply in the eyes with a big smile. These people have left a very positive impression in my heart forever. We live in a bad time when people in the West are very unfriendly, disrespectful, and rude to each other. In El Salvador I felt like a human being again. 3. The National Library of El Salvador. It's something very unique and no influencer talks much about it. This whole building and its purpose are simply amazing. It was built by a Chinese company and financed by the Salvador's government. It's open 24/7, completely free and fully air-conditioned. There are shelves of books on 7 floors and also some games for children and PC games for teenagers. But if you want to play a game, You have to read a book for 30 minutes first and then you get a test. Whoever came up with this idea, he must be a genius. There are some corners that look like co-working spaces. I worked there at least 10 times during my visit. Not to mention that there is also a space for robotics, which is exactly my specialty. You can read more about this library on Wikipedia. This kind of project should be in every country, in every big city in the world. Here you can see the respect and intent towards the Salvadoran people. China is building high-tech library open 24/7, and the Americans are building overpriced shopping malls and fast food chains. You get the idea. 4. Western system of governance. Latin America and Southeast Asia are known for requiring a lot of energy and patience to solve even the most primitive problem. You won't see that in El Salvador. Yes, El Salvador has become too westernized. That's bad. But the positive thing is that the country runs smoothly, every problem is solved promptly, and you don't have those long endless lines in supermarkets like in Colombia, Peru, or Brazil. During my visit, every question was answered directly, every problem was solved in no time and with big smile. This is probably the biggest advantage of importing Western culture. You don't have to deal with some nonsense that requires a high level of patience. These are my pros and cons from my observations in El Salvador. The question now is it worth visiting El Salvador or even moving there? And for whom? When you travel somewhere, you always consider, is it worth it? Is it worth my money and time? Are there any better places? Well, it depends. I would divide it into 3 categories: short-term visitors, long-term visitors, and single men. Short-term visitors. I definitely recommend a visit, even though it is expensive and a bit boring. It is still worth the money and time if you stay for 3 to 5 days. And if you combine your trip with a visit to Honduras and Guatemala, you can't go wrong. Long-term visitors. You should seriously consider all my pros and cons and ask yourself, are there better places in the world, or even in Latin America, where I could spend my time and money? I can't answer that for you. You should definitely visit El Salvador for a few days first and see for yourself. Single men. If you've already spent some time in other Latin American countries, you're here in the wrong place. But if you're an American or Canadian and struggle to find a girlfriend in your city, then long-distance relationship in San Salvador could be the perfect solution. Direct flights and the dollar currency make it much easier. Yes, these girls are not as attractive as girls in other Latin American countries, but they are definitely nicer than modern Western women. That was my analysis of El Salvador, the country with the nicest people I have ever met. I am not sure if I will come back again. The government needs to do something about the economy, about the prices, and definitely build more gyms, make them more accessible, and get people more active. I would love to come back, visit National Liberty, and experience these nice people again. But the prices need to be at Salvadoran level, not foreign level. El Salvador is not only proof that the Bitcoin era is over, but also proof that the government can easily eliminate crime and corruption within 3 years. In other words, if a country is criminal and corrupt, the government is heavily involved in and even supports it. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Have a nice day and see you in the next video.